Wagner head Prigozhin is in Russia, according to Belarus president. Russian mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. Petersburg and Wagnerian soldiers were in the camp before the coup was withdrawn, the Belarusian president said on Thursday. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko helped Prigozhin reach an agreement to end the uprising in exchange for permission to leave Belarus on June 24 for him and his army in exchange for amnesty and safety. But few details of the deal have emerged, and the whereabouts and future of Wagner's permanent commander and his own army are still unclear. Lukashenko said last week that Prigozhin was in Belarus, and on Thursday he told international journalists that the mercenary leader was in St. Soldiers Petersburg and Wagner camps. He did not specify the location of the camp, but Prigozhin's mercenaries fought with Russian forces in eastern Ukraine before the attack. In a brief attack, they rushed to the city of Rostov-on-Don in southern Russia, captured the army's headquarters, and then entered the Russian city. Prigozhin explained that dismissing Russia's defense lawyer and chief of staff was just a march. Prigozhin confirmed that his troops had arrived about 200 kilometers, 124 miles, from Moscow, as agreed by Lukashenko, to halt their advance. The failed coup is the biggest threat to Russian President Vladimir Putin's rule in more than 2 decades, exposing a weakness in the Kremlin and undermining Putin's authority. Wagner fighters met little resistance, sometimes breaching and shooting down at least 6 helicopters and a command plane, killing at least 10 pilots. Lukashenko's comments. Russian media reported that Prigozhin's St. Petersburg is Russia's second-largest city. His arrival is seen as part of a deal that allowed him to do business there. Russian media claimed that Prigozhin took the money he had saved in his search in his office and a small amount of weapons that he had hidden in St. The Russian online newspaper Fontanka published some of its own items, including videos and photos of Prigozhin's mansion, as well as a collection of wigs in various colors. She's also posted selfies that apparently show her in various wigs and foreign clothing, as Wagner is stationed in Syria and many African countries. When asked if Prigozhin and his followers were ready to move to Belarus, Lukashenko evasively replied that the decision would rest with President Wagner and the Russian government. The president said he did not think Wagner's presence in Belarus would lead to conflict in the country. Copyright 2023 Associated Press. Okay. This information may not be copied, published, reproduced, or redistributed without permission. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko told CNN on Thursday that Wagner's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, is not in Belarus and it is not clear whether his fighters will go to the country. Wagner's agreement to end last month's military offensive has raised new doubts. Prigozhin reportedly went to Belarus as part of his deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin after the failed coup, but Lukashenko told CNN's Matthew Chance that the Wagner chief now remains in Russia. His comments have raised new questions about the whereabouts of Prigozhin, who has not been seen in public since his departure from Rostov-on-Don in southern Russia on June 24. According to Yevgeny Prigozhin, he is in St. Petersburg. Maybe this morning he will go to Moscow or somewhere else, Lukashenko replied to Chien in an interview with international media in Minsk. but not in Belarus now. Lukashenko said Moscow will decide whether fighters from the armed group will come to Belarus, adding that the decision will be made in the near future. Lukashenko said that Russia would leave the Wagner fighters in Belarus after the Prigozhin rebellion failed. As of Thursday, it was unclear whether they had arrived in Belarus. If Wagner comes to Belarus, Lukashenko said sending mercenaries would protect our country. The real problem is that we have to use this machine to protect our country, and here they open up in almost every direction. Their experience would be welcomed. Lukashenko said that Wagner's forces would have to sign an agreement with the Belarusian government if they wanted to stay in the country, explaining that Minsk would not build camps for the weaker group of people. Lukashenko told a group of mercenary rebels against the Kremlin, "The Russians think it's safe for them, but they are wrong." Wagner stood up in the center to the Belarusian police and the Belarusian state, Lukashenko said. Anything can happen in life. But I don't think that's the case today. You have to work with people. Belarus played an important role in the war. On February 24, 2022, the Russian army crossed the border between Belarus and Russia and set a trap in Ukraine. But on Thursday, Lukashenko said he did not regret his country's involvement in the conflict, because I was not involved in the project. As you say, regarding the invasion of Ukraine from our land, President Putin has a question why he chose the shortest route instead of Bryansk to withdraw the Russian army from Kiev, at the end of the Russian-Belarusian Union. City. Video showing gold, silver and wigs. By the way, Russian media reported that the police said that Prigozhin's St above. The video, described as shameful by the TV presenter, shows gold, silver and wigs, as well as guns and numerous passports that seem to belong to Prigozhin under a different name. Until recently, Russian state television supported Wagner's operations in Ukraine, but after the failed coup, outlets seem to have moved to attack creative private military companies. A lengthy episode broadcast on state television detailed Prigozhin's criminal history, including allegations of kidnapping and assault, and a long prison sentence in the 1980s. There are guns and many passports with the same picture but different first and last names, said a Russian state television reporter. In one episode, a video of Russia 24 police shooting at their office and several photos of the ornately decorated building, where the wardrobe can be seen, were published. There are wigs in many colors. Russian state television regularly broadcasts video footage of terrorist plans, defined as attacks, carried out by the security services. Experts and human rights defenders say the Russian authorities have a model of bringing criminal cases against the Kremlin's political candidates. The Wagner-led coup of June is the biggest threat to Putin's position since Russia launched a war on Ukraine in February 2022. Treason will be punished. I believe that Putin will take revenge on President Wagner. What's next for Prigozhin? Anything happens in life. But if you think Putin is so bad that he'll kill Prigozhin tomorrow, no, that's not going to happen.